Wicked Part 1 is in theaters, and this is the secret ingredient as to why Wicked is crushing it on every single level. But first, we gotta talk about where this movie comes from, because there's all kinds of influences and all kinds of important pieces of information that define Wicked's success.
Once you learn to harness your emotions, the sky's the limit.
Wicked is based on a Broadway show called Wicked, which is based on a book called Wicked, which is a spin-off from The Wonderful World of Oz, which is a book from 1900, which has countless sequels, including an adaptation from 1939 called The Wizard of Oz, which you probably heard of.
Just follow the yellow brick road.
Because it's one of the most influential movies ever made. What makes The Wizard of Oz so compelling? It is a story written by Frank L. Baum from 1900. It is a classic hero's quest with all the classic Joseph Campbell elements. Star Wars, which is one of the biggest movies of the last few decades, is entirely Wizard of Oz based. Well, the 1995 book Wicked took the idea that it could turn things upside down and start looking at who these characters were outside of the context of that original story. So what is the secret ingredient that makes Wicked, not just the movie, but the Broadway show and the original book, work so well? I think it's empathy. Empathy is a really simple concept, and all the execution, all the music, all the casting, all the design work, it all rests on the idea that the story can create empathy in the audience for a character that was 100% two-dimensional.
Elphaba turns out to be a person of extraordinary potential.
The original Wizard of Oz from 1939 has a Wicked Witch of the West who has no layers, no depth, nothing going on aside from being evil. And if you remember that movie, that character is really just a proxy for the evil woman in town who wants to kill Toto.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too.
What if you were to take a character like the Wicked Witch of the West and make her a victim? Or make her at least understandable? Let us understand what motivates somebody like that to become evil. This is the core of what Wicked does. And the Broadway show and the movie change a lot of specific details from that original 1995 book, but they hold on to the core concept of empathy.
The citizens of Oz. Folks have come to expect that sort of thing.
But what is the rest of the recipe for Wicked? Well, it's complicated. Wicked is obviously built to be a massive success. Just like many big swings that studios take with popular IP, they want to hit all the quadrants, they want to have Oscar success, they want to smash, and they got one. But what else did it set out to do? What did the movie try to define early on that would determine its success?
I'm not afraid.
Well, it sets up a plot that's going to span 2 movies. We meet a bunch of characters who have a backstory. As soon as we meet this version of Glinda the Good Witch, it is explained to us that she has a history. She has a history with the Wicked Witch of the West and with the other characters, and we're going to explore all of that and go way back. And the movie takes its time because it wants to set up not just this movie, but part 2.
Don't be afraid.
And it doesn't just want to do that. I have a hunch it wants to set up an Oz expanded universe. This is, remember, a major property for this studio. They want to keep going back to Oz. Anytime any studio has something like this, they want to milk it for all it's worth. They probably want TV shows too. Who knows where the limits are?
Helping the little lady along, are you, my fine gentleman?
So, what works and what doesn't? Does Wicked cook with this recipe and the secret ingredient? The answer is definitely yes. Did Wicked set up this universe? Did it take this character through this arc from being an outcast to being somebody who embraces villainy? Yes, it does. Do we have empathy for this character throughout the story? Absolutely. Did the story set up other characters who are interesting and compelling and a part of this plot? Yes. Are we curious to see where all of them go in part 2? Almost certainly. People aren't just going once, they're going twice, they're singing along. This is the exact opposite of other major releases of musicals where it just doesn't find its audience. Wicked took a big swing and it connected.
You have no real power.
So what else is like this if you want more? Obviously, there are tons of Wizard of Oz books. There's all the ones by Frank L. Baum, but there's also a ton of others. This is a really expansive literary universe. And if you love it and you want more Oz, it's definitely out there for you. On the other hand, if you're looking for things more cinematic, then you can obviously go to the 1939 movie. There's also a movie, Return to Oz. There's also The Wiz. There is also another attempt to give more backstory to the Wizard of Oz. There's a movie that stars James Franco playing a young wizard who comes to Oz. It tells about how he rose to power. So this well has been gone to before. As for other movies that take a character who is evil and show us a little bit about who they maybe really are or why they became that way, there's all kinds of examples. Honestly, The Godfather is kind of that movie. So are the Star Wars prequels. There are examples everywhere of characters who we start off thinking of as sympathetic, who we have empathy for, who end up making decisions that turn them into a villain. Some work better than others, and Wicked is definitely one of the ones that works really well. But more than any of that, Wicked has a very powerful message at its core.
It's the wizard who should be afraid of me.
It holds up a mirror to us, not just as people, but as a society. What are we capable of? Even when we think we're justified, even when we think we're motivated by good. The process of othering individuals, types of people, based on superficial differences, almost always is politically motivated. It's leading us down a path of conflict and violence. And the inability to see ourselves in one another, the lack of that secret ingredient, empathy, is what drives so much of the darkness in this world. The power of Wicked is its ability to ask us to see somebody we only thought we knew one way as something so much more. And if we can take that message out with us into the rest of our lives and look around and see that there are dimensions and layers and motivations and meanings behind all individuals because we have developed that empathy, well then Wicked has done something much, much bigger than make a good movie. It has made us better people. It's one of the most influential movies ever made. To make a purely evil character, no layers, no depth. It holds up a mirror to us, turn things upside down. The Godfather is kind of that movie, an Oz expanded universe. What do you think of Wicked? What do you think of all that's packed up inside of there? What do you think of the world of Oz? And what do you think of this video? Let us know in the comments, and we would love to comment back and hear more from you. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe.